Hi there. Thanks for tuning into this week's Wheel and Anchor newsletter. I wanted to share with you one of the topics that came up during our member events that we've held over the last couple of weeks here in Southern Ontario. I heard a great number of stories of people who've traveled really all over the world, and I was inspired to hear of some of those experiences. But one of the questions that came up was about cruising, particularly from people who'd had less experience with cruising or had never been on a cruise before. And so I thought I'd touch on a couple of points, which is why I put this photograph on the screen that I took during an Antarctic expedition voyage a couple of years ago. In order to understand cruising, I think we need to first of all differentiate between the various types of cruising, because there are large cruise ships that carry 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 passengers and more, as well as smaller ships like expedition ships that might only carry several hundred passengers, or even mega yachts. So I think before you make any judgment about cruising, one really needs to look at the different types of cruises. Certainly cruising provides a certain ease of travel. Once you've checked in, you don't have to pack and unpack your luggage, and you really always have a stateroom, a place to go back and take a nap or just get away from all the activities that are going on board. And there's always a consistency of food. You know what you're going to get every day is going to be quality, and you're always going to have, you're never going to have to go too far to get something to eat. And of course, you have the freedom to do as much or as little as you want. So it's a very relaxing experience. And of course, the reason that most people go on cruises is for the chance to explore new places. Because of course, in most cases, cruises are going from port to port every day. You're someplace different. And it allows you the opportunity to catch a glimpse of and get an experience of different cities and countries. Of course, on the other side of the coin, cruises, particularly large ones, can be quite stressful. But even smaller river cruise type things can have the same kind of issue, because you're on a very set schedule. The ship arrives at a certain time, it departs at a certain time, and you have hundreds or thousands of people that have to disembark and re-embark the ship within a relatively short span of time. As a result, you don't often have the freedom to simply do as you want and come and go. Similarly, the shore excursions that you have on board various cruises often tend to be very predictable and touristy. They take you to the same spots. And so the experience is somewhat generic and not necessarily reflective of what you might otherwise experience in that particular country. And lastly, the people. And you, of course, can see a lot of people on board a cruise ship, and you have a chance to meet a great number of people. But my experience has been, and what I've heard from members, is that the larger the cruise ship, the less likely you are to meet other people on board. In fact, smaller ships like river cruise ships or yacht type experiences are the ones where you're more likely to build experiences that will last beyond the duration of the ship. So one couple differentiated it for me just perfectly, and they said they do both cruising and travel on their own or with groups overland. And they said, we go on cruises because it's a way for us to relax, to get away from it all, not to have to think about everything, and simply to just have the freedom to do as much or as little as we want. But at the same time, for them, cruising was not travel. And when they were traveling, they were out there learning something about the place, using their senses to explore, to taste, feel, smell the different countries in a little bit more of a focused way. So that gives you a bit of a sense from my perspective of one of the questions that came up. I'm a big fan of cruising. I think it's a great way to travel. I think it's a lot of fun. And at the same time, we have to understand that there's limitations to the experience that you can actually have inside of a country. On that note, I should remind you that we just recently had our webinar on our cruise program, on our expedition cruise program, Scotland by Sea, that's happening in May of 2020. So if you weren't able to participate in that, you can go to that webpage, and there's a link below where you can click on, and we'll send you a replay so you can get a little bit more of a sense of what that particular cruise experience is about. And finally, we still have 1 or 2 spots available on our Adriatic Coast program, which is happening going from Slovenia down the beautiful Adriatic coast of Croatia on a mega yacht. That's taking place this coming June. So if you're still interested in that, as I mentioned, I think we have 1 or 2 places left. So on that note, as always, I wish you happy travels.